I want to say good morning. I want to welcome you all to the National Press Club and our Newsmakers News Conference this morning. My name is Herb Perrone. I'm the chair of the Newsmakers Committee here at the Press Club, and I'm hosting this morning's event. And I want to remind you that the National Press Club is the world's leading organization for journalists. You can find out more about the club at www.press.org. The unemployment rate for women veterans was a staggering 17.1% last January. By May, it had plummeted to 4.9%, but that's at least in part because women veterans became discouraged in good numbers and dropped out of the labor force. Many women returning from operations in Iraq and Afghanistan are struggling to transition to civilian life with factors such as homelessness, disability, the effects of military sexual trauma, and other challenges impeding their and their families' ability to become economically self-sufficient. So joining us this morning to discuss the unique challenges facing women veterans who are seeking employment and to announce a new initiative to help them is Goodwill Industries International's President and CEO, Jim Gibbons. Goodwill is the leading nonprofit provider of job training services and programs in the United States and Canada, and its goal is to help people find good jobs and keep them. Following Mr. Gibbons, to tell her personal story, is Juanita Williams. Ms. Williams is a Navy veteran who has launched a new career using Goodwill services. And while she has successfully transitioned from the military to civilian life, she'll tell you that the effects of the emotional and psychological challenges that she faced, the military sexual trauma, and her service-related injuries all presented enormous obstacles to finding employment. Today, she's an ophthalmologist assistant at the Bel Air Eye Care Clinic in Houston, Texas, and she's joined here today by her employer. And finally, we'll hear from U.S. Department of Labor Assistant Secretary Keith Kelly. Assistant Secretary Kelly heads the department's Veterans Employment and Training Service, or VETS, which serves Americans veterans and separating service members by preparing them for meaningful careers, providing employment resources and expertise, and protecting their employment rights. Just a few ground rules before we get started. After our speakers make their presentations, we'll open the floor to Q&A. Only Press Club members and credentialed media may ask questions. And because we're doing a webcast this morning, I will be repeating each of the questions, so please keep them brief. When you're called on to ask a question, just tell us your name and your affiliation. With that, I'm going to turn everything over to Mr. Gibbons.
Well, thank you very much, Herb. Goodwill is delighted to be here today, and we want to express our deepest appreciation to our partners, our colleagues, and friends of Goodwill who are here with us today. And in particular, I know I want to express my appreciation to the Department of Defense, the Department of Veterans Affairs, and the Department of Labor, and in particular to Paul Montague from the White House, who I believe is joining us today as well. We also want to express our sincere appreciation to all of the veterans in the audience, with a special shout out to a couple of Goodwill team members. Pamela Johnson is a program manager at the Houston Goodwill and is not only a hopeful Olympian and a professional athlete in track and field prior to her military career, but 10 years in the Army National Guard, and successfully transitioned into a civilian career, and we're fortunate to have her on the Goodwill team, putting both those athletic disciplines and those skills developed in the Army to good work. And also Rebecca, and Rebecca has respectfully asked to not use her last name, and we will happily do so. But if you talk to her, and I hope you do, you'll learn that her transition from the military, from the Air Force to civilian employment was a tough road. And but she is now a content manager for Shop Goodwill, which is the Goodwill e-commerce site. So it's great to have these guests, and it's great to have the Assistant Secretary, Keith Kelly, with us, and I appreciate that, and Juanita Williams and her CEO, Alonzo Prusmack from Bel Air Eye Care. Because ultimately what we're striving to do is to connect women vets to employment, and the key component to that is employers. So I'm excited here to announce that Goodwill Industries International is making a commitment to serve and connect 3,000 women vets over the course of the next 24 months with opportunities and employment. Now, Goodwill has been serving veterans really since World War I, formalizing programs after World War II, and have served veterans ever since. But what we noticed just over this course of this last 10 years is we saw more Goodwills building more capacity to serve vets. And so in 2010, we undertook a baselining white paper. We called it Deployment to Employment, where we really baselined and sought to understand the phenomenon that was taking place throughout communities around the country and what Goodwills were doing about that. In May of 2011, we introduced that work to the public on Capitol Hill, and it really served as a catalyst for Goodwills around the country to really strengthen their capacity to engage more with collaboration within communities and to develop more veteran-specific programs around the country. Fast forward to 2012, and the First Lady and Dr. Biden really charged the nation and called on the not-for-profit sector to really kick it up a notch to serve America's veterans and their families. And Goodwill put numbers on the table, and I'm excited to announce that after 2 years, we exceeded those numbers hugely, and Goodwills have hired more than or almost 1,800 veterans and their family members over that 2-year time frame, and served 99,600 veterans and their family members. But what we've learned through this, through specific programming, is that we found some success with some national programs. One in particular is Operations Good Jobs, and we do that in partnership. We've done that in partnership with the Walmart Foundation. What we learned is that our outreach and our programming was serving about 17% of the veterans were female, and about 10% of the 22.3 million veterans that are out there today are females. So we really wanted to explore, one, why are we able to reach more? And two, how do we become more intentional and focused on serving female vets? And it's a part of the American dialogue, the American conversation right now. It's real, and the conversation is taking place, and we're excited to move from the conversation to the commitment and to the action so that women veterans who have served our country proudly, women veterans who have this volatile unemployment rate, women veterans who are leaving the labor market because women veterans are often the primary caregiver, they're more likely to be single parents, veterans are more likely to be less employed or more underemployed than their male counterparts. And what we've learned in taking our core capabilities and intentionally focusing them on veterans, we need to take it to that next level, and that's why we're putting a stake in the ground to connect 3,000 women veterans with jobs and opportunity over the course of the next 24 months through really equipping women with the tools, the training, and the connectedness for them to find their success, and by working with communities, convening, really understanding the assets of a community that are available, and being very, very intentional on the use of those community assets. Because what we've really learned is it's about collaboration. Goodwill cannot, never has, and won't do it on our own. We do it through local collaborations and partnerships with employers, with other not-for-profits, with faith-based groups, with the government, and with the community, and we do that with national partnerships all at the same time. So we're excited for this commitment. We're excited for the results that we've achieved so far on behalf of the broader veteran community, and we're even more excited to put a stake in the ground to serve 3,000 women and connecting them with employment and opportunity over the course of the next 24 months, serving these heroes who have served us so valiantly. And thank you.
Ms. Williams?
am Juanita Williams. I've served in the Navy for 8 years. Um, Before I joined the Navy, life was pretty up and down, and I was beginning college in Atlanta, Georgia, and I wanted something different and faster. Of course, the military was my first option. um, I needed something to get away and not be average statistic of just on drugs. I didn't want to take that route, so I said, "What's the best thing to do? Let's go in the military," and I did. Went to the Air Force first, and they were taking too long, so I said, "Let's go to the Navy," and I went to the Navy in 2001. Um, it was probably one of the best things I've ever did was go into the service, get that structure. Had some setbacks as far as uh, having sexual assaults, being bossed around, and um, just actually, what's the word? A lot of emotional abuse from even superiors, and but I've had more good times. I was able to meet great people that I still have connections with today. Um, I've Man, it's been a good and rough patch, but I'd say I've taken a lot of good from it being in the service, and I really did not want to get out, which is you hear a lot of people say they're ready to get out, they want to join the civilian sector, but I love the military, I love the Navy. I was able to travel when I wanted to travel, and I really didn't want to leave it, but you know, medically I had to leave. So I got out January 2009 and went back from San Diego to Atlanta, Georgia, and life was just not that great. I got out with a security clearance, my bachelor's degree in business administration, and trying to find a job was just not happening. And I applied and applied and applied, and it was just not happening. My mom had a friend he lived in Georgia and he moved to Houston. And at the time, I didn't know he was with Houston Goodwill. But he said, "Come on down to Houston and they have great jobs and you can get in with someone." And so we up and packed our stuff and moved. Uh, well, when we got to Houston, the guy we were renting the house from, he rented our house, but not to us. So me, my mom, and my daughter, we got to Houston, nowhere to stay. All our money was gone, so we ended up staying in our U-Haul truck for a couple nights until we found someone that was able to help us and get us into a hotel, and we stayed there for 30 days and finally got into our home in July of 2012. And the friend that offered us to come down to Houston, he was graduating from Operation Good Jobs, and he invited us to the graduation, and we went. And just listening to the veterans and their stories and how they've overcome challenges and were able to find jobs through Operation Good Jobs, I was like, okay, maybe this will work for me. And I walked around the corner and I met with Miss Vanessa Stuckey, who is my employment specialist through Houston Goodwill, and I've been with her since. I stay in contact with her probably once or twice a week, see her maybe once a month, and they've helped me with childcare, with employment resources as far as resume writing classes, interviewing techniques, and of course, dress, how to present yourself, and all that. And of course, the biggest was finding my employer, Bel Air Eye Care. They offered me the opportunity to join their team and learn as an ophthalmologist assistant also while paying for it. I never heard of that, so I said, "Well, yeah, pick me, I'll go." I didn't mind. It was a big decision, and I was willing to make it. I was willing to do anything to take care of my daughter. And of course, my mom. You know, it's always been just me, my mom, my daughter. My mom's only child. No, I'm not spoiled, but um, and so I've been with Bel Air Eye Care since October 2012, and I enjoy it. I love it. I'm part of their family, and it's been great. And I wouldn't change it for the world. You know, Operation Good Jobs has changed a lot since being in Houston, and I'm very thankful for them and the services. And at first, you think of Goodwill, you think of the store. You know, you think of thrift stores, and I would have never guessed that they had this. So it was very good that they had the programs to help because we need it. We really need it. Coming out of the service and, you know, post traumatic stress disorders. And I had a car accident in 2006 that took the life of my cousin, and I was driving, so I couldn't drive anywhere. My mom literally drives me everywhere. But now, you know, having services that help us and, you know, get us back on our feet and back in the world and able to work, you know, because a lot of us can't work. And so I'm very thankful that I'm able to work, and all from serving my country, you know, being taking that step and being proud to serve. I love the military. If I could go back now, I would, you know. But I want my daughter to have that opportunity as well, and to know that when if she does go in and she gets out, she can have someone there to help her as well as me, you know. And it's I wouldn't change anything. Wouldn't change it. Very, very thankful.
Thanks. And Assistant Secretary Kelly.
Well, thank you. I'm trying to figure out how you follow up on it. Is a story behind her, and I'm at a loss. But to thank you, Jim Gibbons of Goodwill Industries International, and your staff for putting together this conference, and in particular, Juanita, thank you for sharing your journey from Georgia to San Diego, back to Houston, back to, and here you are today at the National Press Club. My gosh. As many of you may know, the Goodwill Industries has been helping veterans, as I heard Jim say, from World War I, and I commend you all for your tireless efforts in that to assist our brave Americans who have worn our nation's uniforms and have risked so much to keep America safe. And so on behalf of Acting Secretary Harris and the whole Department of Labor, I want to congratulate you for your legacy of helping our heroes and for making such a positive impact over the years in society as a whole. I believe, as does Acting Secretary Harris, that we do have an obligation to honor and serve these men and women who have served us. But our department can't conduct this and do it on its own without the full support of people like Goodwill. So today, as you've heard, Goodwill Industries serves nearly 46,000 veterans each year, to their credit. And some of these Goodwills are engaged with our Homeless Veterans Reintegration Program that is in my agency and are participating in the stand-down events. So your commitment to taking care of our veterans is unparalleled and does deserve the utmost praise. So I commend you, Mr. Gibbons, and all of the efforts you've done. So, and this is why today I think I'm excited and feel honored to actually be able to join you today in your announcement of you're increasing your efforts in the female veteran community. The Department of Labor is fully supportive of Goodwill's enhanced efforts to focus on women's veterans, and we want and need to learn from you folks in how to better help more women veterans make successful transition from the military into gainful civilian careers, if that's their choice. When I came to the Department of Labor in January to serve as your Assistant Secretary for Vets, Veterans Employment and Training Service, I was already aware, I read the papers too, even out in Montana, that I was aware that women veterans do not have an effective transition, many do not have an effective transition to civilian employment after they leave the military. And so I made a commitment on my own part to better understand the challenges that they face, to work across other federal government agencies to see how one can help better, and the nonprofits to identify and deliver solutions for women veterans. So what we do know is that women continue to hold key roles in our military. They are 14.6% of the active duty force. They're 18% of your National Guard and Reserves. And as I think Jim used the number, the 20%. They're 20% of our new recruits. So currently there are 2.2 million women's veterans, and they are the fastest growing cohort within the veteran community. The VA is reporting that more than 150,000 women will be transitioned out of the military in the next few years. And additionally, recently the Bureau of Labor Statistics within the U.S. Department of Labor data confirmed a hard reality. Women's veterans unemployment rate is 8.3%, at 8.3%, is higher than the male counterparts at 6.9. That's about a 1.5 spread there. And it is also higher than women non-veterans, their peer group, which is 7.9%. That's about a half point spread. So we must be doing something to address this, or at least look what is behind that. So here's how we are with my organization, Department of Labor Vets, is being proactive. We have just created a new Women's Veteran Initiative, which includes staff from the Department of Labor's Office of the Secretary, the Women's Bureau, and the vets, and is dedicated team working together to accomplish three immediate goals we're looking at. Identify the distinct challenges that exist for women veterans in employment, identify services within the department and among other partners in government as the Small Business Administration and others involved in helping to close that employment gap. And number three, what we're doing here today is to help elevate women's veterans and issues among diverse stakeholders to really maximize awareness and impact to all. Already we're making progress, and here are some of our exciting examples I'd like to share with you. We have just reached out to the Department of Labor women veteran employees, I think it was just about 2 weeks ago now, to learn from their successful transition, how they successfully transitioned effectively, and to expand employment services and opportunities for other women that they have made that, turned that corner, for lack of a better word. And so there are several research projects in the works that will give us substantive data to make kind of solid program policy decisions of where we go and what we do. And just yesterday, we just finished up with the Department of Labor, of which Goodwill Industries joined us up there, hosted a listening session where there was about 150 veteran service organizations and advocates to gather their best practices, build partnerships, and identify resources that will support our efforts to better serve women veterans. And finally, we just announced a job opening within VETS of the first time full women veterans program manager who will focus solely on women's veteran employment. So that will be that individuals, and I suspect it will be a woman that gets hired for that position. And as a matter of fact, it just closes, I think, the 25th. I shouldn't be so judgmental on that, but I suspect that will be a lot of candidates for that, but very likely in the women's area. So over the next several years, we'll continue to learn from these efforts to make improvements and adjustments in our programs. And so in conclusion, congratulations to Goodwill Industries for placing their greater emphasis they've recognized as a national issue on female veterans, and on your past successes that you've led here today. And your efforts will no doubt help empower more women with vital skills, tools, and connections that they need in order to succeed. And when you especially hear stories like Juanita's here in front of everybody, I think somebody can connect the dots up pretty fast. We are excited for your efforts and look forward to learning from them and being part of this whole thing. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And we're going to open the floor for questions. I'd actually like to get things started because, I'm curious as a journalist. How do women veterans translate their military skills into the civilian world? And is the kind of licensing and approvals that they get in the service, do those things transfer, or is there a problem there?
And I think you're asking that to me, and it's all veterans, and I think that's been a challenge to transfer your military credentialing and licensing into what the civilian occupations may be. We speak different languages between the military and the civilian world. And so really, credits, I think, go a lot to the First Lady and Dr. Biden, who met with all the First Ladies when they had the National Governors Conference up here to somehow figure the licensing, credentialing piece out here to make it a lot easier. And there's been a lot of effort before that, because it's a challenge for all veterans, not just female veterans, with regards to what this skill and occupation. When I asked Juanita what she did there, then how did that translate into something in the civilian world that's recognized? That's one of the things that's going to be better identified. And secondly on that, there's we think there's an issue. We're not certain. That's why the efforts underway is that women veterans tend not to identify themselves as veterans as much as the male world does. So hopefully we get a clear answer.
Yes.
Monica Coleman inside Capitol Hill and the NPC Wire. My question is to Mr. Gibbons. How did you come up with the number 3,000 and how do you choose which 3,000 women veterans?
And I need to repeat the question. Monica Coleman asks how Goodwill Industries International came up with the 3,000 target for this initiative.
Well, as we work with local Goodwills, and each Goodwill is an independent, autonomous, community-based organization. So we do it in collaboration with the local Goodwills, but we start by watching what's happening. And then we work with them through surveying and conversation and focus groups to make a determination on what they're willing to commit to, and then we bump it up. Because we always want stretch, and we at Goodwill Industries International really are not where the rubber meets the road. We actually don't have. This may sound sad to say, we don't have the brilliant ideas. The brilliant ideas take place in the local communities. That's where the problems are being solved. And so, in working with local Goodwills and their communities, we're able to kind of get a sense of what we can handle from a capacity perspective, and then we think by really being a catalyst for the initiative, we'll be able to kind of exceed what local organizations are able to kind of think of today, because what will happen is, Goodwills are very competitive creatures, and Goodwills who haven't really started formulating women-specific programs will start. And we will serve as the facilitator for that knowledge transfer and for the replication from community to community. And what we find time and time again is it happens, it works, we're able to replicate and then scale. So that's really the process that we go through to really put a stake in the ground and then drive, lead, and support the entire network to really develop the programming, to convene the communities, and to deliver the programs.
Any other questions? Because I wanted to ask Mr. Gibbons, you mentioned in your opening remarks, you spoke about underemployment of women veterans being as much a problem as unemployment. I was wondering if you could expand on that a little bit.
Well, there's some work we have to do to understand the data, but we've seen some pretty cool success with our Operations Good Jobs program. So when I talk about the 17% of the women that we served, one, how did we reach them? And as Keith mentioned, a lot of women veterans don't identify themselves as veterans. We think, and through a report that's in the media kit, I believe it's in there, you can hear lessons from the field, and you can hear how the women vets that we've been able to and had the honor to serve really have appreciated that personal touch. You heard Juanita speak about her employment specialist, who she's still in contact with, every week, every month. And one lady said, it's great to not just be handed a binder. And so outreach and connection has been, and the Goodwill brand, I think, is an attractive, safe, promising brand. And then when you look at the, 70 cents on the dollar across, the country in terms of women versus men, our program, and this I'd characterize as small, but in our Operations Good Jobs, our women vets were making more than our male vets. And it's not something that we particularly strive for. We just try to optimize and match people with the best job. But that I think is a good sign that we're able to make those matches and help women vets really empower themselves to optimize their earning potential and to find the match that works best for them so that this whole underemployment issue that does exist can be remedied. The other element, in other programs that we have in serving women, we do a lot of work with underemployed women. We'll be developing, where we have veterans-specific programs, national programs, we'll be putting aggressive goals within our goals for women vets. And where we have women programs, we'll be putting goals for vets. So all of that will come together over this 24 months so we can achieve these goals.
I'm Patty Gillio. I work with Goodwill, but I'm also a member of the National Press Club. I want to follow up on the question in the front about how the 3,000 will be selected. What should women veterans do if they're interested in getting involved?
Patty Gillio has asked how these women will be selected and how they can get involved in the program.
Well, I think in contacting your local Goodwill is always a great place to start, but you can go to goodwill.org to find connections or the Goodwill app and find your way to the local Goodwill, and they will be able to work through a process and let you know what types of programming is available. And again, each Goodwill, some Goodwills may not have on the surface veterans-specific programming, but all Goodwills serve across their community.
And I would like to ask Mr. Gibbons and Assistant Secretary Pelley, obviously if veterans or anybody's going to get a job, somebody's got to hire them. Are employers aware of the specific needs or challenges that that women veterans face? Is there any outreach in any organized way to employers, or is that all done in local communities?
For us, it's done twofold. Ultimately, 80% of that part of the solution is really local, in my view. Goodwills across the country have relationships with 100,000 employers, and it's a lot of small businesses, entrepreneurs like Alonzo with Bel Air Eye Clinic, and in working with Goodwill, that's how Alonzo got a great team member in Juanita. But they also started their interest in vets focused on Project Victory, which was for TBI issues associated with the eye, with eye problems, but thought, hey, why don't we go to that next level and hire veterans so that they can develop skills in the medical eye industry. And where do you go? You go to Goodwill, because what Goodwill strives to do is understand the employer as a customer. What are their hiring needs? It's not a force fit in any way. It's really the match is made by the local community understanding the hiring needs by sector, by business, by hire, and then ensuring that they're putting either the right specific programs in place or supporting and equipping the women veterans with the tools, understanding their needs, equipping them with tools, and working with them to translate their military skills in what makes sense. So if you run a warehouse and in the military you were in transportation, logistics are logistics, right? You're managing the movement and storage of things. So how do you connect those dots? And then in the context of national partnerships, in working with national employers, whether that's our relationship with Walmart or with Bank of America or Allied Barton, a security company, through national relationships, we connect those dots at the local levels, and we have employers who then orchestrate either training or exposure or job fairs at the local level. But at the end of the day, every hire is local.
I'll respond back on behalf of the U.S. Labor Department. What is a part of that Labor Department, of which we and vets are closely tied with, is the Employment and Training Administration job service offices all over the country. And there's about 2,700 of them scattered out throughout America, which which gets to Jim's deal. It is local out there. It's not from Washington. It's out there in Glasgow, Montana, or wherever that job center office is at, that we will have vets representation here. And I do think there is still a challenge, and that's what's part working out. What is that military MOS? That's an acronym out there that translates over here into the civilian world with, you know, what are the qualifications and the skills that are easily transferable? And so part of that's being worked out to clearly get that, the interpretation of what job skills. The other ones, and we're hopeful that's what the whole effort of this Women's Initiative study is, to see what other kind of constraints and barriers there. And I think, well, Nina, if I don't mind, I'm going to tag off of what I heard her talk about. One of them is, it's a family deal in this. She was with her mother. I mean, the network out there to help you get and turn this corner in life, and I think that's been recognized by many. It takes more in a village. It takes the whole thing to make it work. And the other one I think Nita mentioned, especially with women veterans issues, are children. That changes dynamics a lot, and how one can address, and how can we or should society have a debate to help with or look at things such as child care and some of those things, because that's a big game changer for this male person speaking. I applaud those ladies that figure out how to balance and get that done. So it's a work in progress, I guess, is a long story short.
Monica, before we follow up, my question is for you, Anita. You are an amazing person that you can go through so much trauma and still stay very positive. What pearls of wisdom would you share with other military women who may be going through now what you have gone through, and what would you say to them?
And the question is to Juanita, what advice would she give to other military women who are going through what she went through?
I would say have a support group, whether it's family, your faith group, Goodwill. If you can get to a Goodwill, they're a good support group within their own. But don't be afraid to ask for help is the biggest thing, because a lot of women, and I think some men, it's not easy to say I need that help. It's not, and I'm the biggest person that it's very hard to ask for things. But be willing to say, and be humble yourself to say, hey, I need this help, but don't sit there and not strive for it and work for it, and don't give up. And I've had my days where I wanted to just say I quit, but I think the military instilled in me never ever quit. So so I would say just, allow yourself to be humble enough to say I need this help, and get it.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we can relax the rules. And anybody has a question, would love to. And Monica, you're back.
I have one more. Opportunities for veterans throughout the unemployment offices throughout the United States.
And
I'm sorry, so I have to repeat the question. Monica asks if there are any mechanisms for accelerating job applications and information from veterans throughout the country.
And the answer is yes. To these American Job Centers that I mentioned, the 2,700 that are scattered all over, there's a priority of service provided for veterans in there. If you may recall, a few years ago, there was a gold card initiative that the priority of service that they're guaranteed to go to the front of the line, in a sense, if they need particular services to help them make that transition. So that network is there with a priority given to all veterans. Now what we're talking about here is, I don't want to use the word subset, but to focus on female veterans there that may even have another layer of issues to go on, and try to get to the bottom of those obstacles. So the answer in the broadest sense is for all veterans is yes.
Patty.
I have another question.
And the question is, why is it that women veterans don't identify themselves as veterans as strongly as male veterans do?
Well, for me, it was being afraid because it's such a male dominated place. You think of the Marines, the Army, mostly men. But for me, it was very hard to say that you were a veteran. And after going through so much, you know, war and dealing with that, you're not used to the attention that everybody gives you, and you're proud to serve. Don't get me wrong, you're very happy to serve, but it's very tough to come from that and then back into the civilian world, and people look at you as such a hero, but you don't feel like a hero. You feel like what I could have done better, or what I've, why am I in this situation? Um, I'm a veteran. I've served. I've done this. How did I get here? Back down to the lowest totem pole, and you don't feel so hopeful sometimes. So it's very hard to align yourself with proud to serve, and you're not serving anymore, basically.
Yes.
I'm Kathy Manis. I'm with the American Association of Community Colleges, and I wanted to, first of all, thank Mr. Gibbons and Goodwill, because they've really, besides just placing people into jobs, they're doing a good job of helping to provide the education and training and working with community colleges. And I wonder if you could speak for a minute on the efforts that you have done to link the Goodwills with the community colleges.
And the question is about efforts that Goodwill has made to link Goodwill to community colleges.
Absolutely. Just one thing on the last question, and I wouldn't ever pretend to speak on as Juanita just did, but what we've also learned is how do you ask the questions, and maybe the right question isn't are you a vet, or maybe it's did you serve in the military, because I think you hear from Juanita the pride of serving. So I think that's one of the elements that we've learned is how do you ask the questions to get the answers you need to provide the service. But that goes along with our work with community colleges. There again, we have what we characterize as a C4 initiative, community college career collaboration, and we've got a particular focus through our Vested in Vets program, which is supported in partnership with Bank of America Charitable Foundation. And in that particular case, what we see is the opportunity to take the strengths of Goodwill, which are holistic integrated services and navigation services, working with an individual who has whatever barriers to finding that employment, and helping them maneuver, through the college, community college system, which is, such a huge and valuable asset for communities. And we're putting a particular focus on vets, and within that, we'll put a particular focus on female veterans. So, that initiative came from, again, not we sitting here in Washington, D.C. deciding what works in community, but by listening to Goodwills around the country and realizing that, many Goodwills had elements of a relationship with a community college, but not one that was necessarily more than one individual talking with one individual, not an organizational strategic relationship. And so about 3 years ago, we started the C4 initiative, and now we have 87 partnerships in community that are structured, focused, and are achieving extraordinary results.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, the Freedom Council Catholic Charities USA. I was interested in knowing what collaborations are you looking to form?
What we hope to achieve with this initiative and how Goodwills work is they're very competitive. Is by seeking their input and then establishing a national goal and then supporting them with the tools. What we hope is through driving more convening, driving more local relationships and collaborations. But what we see happening already is those collaborations are with really across the community with faith-based groups, other not-for-profits, community colleges, businesses, and employers, and the government. So, what we want to see happen out of this, because we can't do it all, is those types of collaborations, understanding the assets or the resources available, and then wisely, ensuring that those resources are available for the women vets in those communities. So that's the key. And what we always like to think is you got to meet a person where they are, but it really is twofold. We have to meet a person where they are, but we have to be there. So if a Goodwill has a homeless program, they might find their way to a female vet, who I think female vets have 3 times more likelihood of being homeless than their female counterparts. And so if we have a homeless program, we might have that opportunity. But if we don't, then we'll have to partner with other organizations who have homeless programs to work with them and then bring that particular Goodwill's capabilities to the party. So in some cases, we play a real backbone role, and in some communities or in some programs, we play a support role, and each Goodwill will morph to its particular community needs.
Any other questions? Okay, well, there being none, I want to say thank you to Mr. Gibbons, to Ms. Williams, and to Assistant Secretary Kelly for being here, and thank all of you for attending. And we wish you the greatest success with your individual endeavors, and especially you, Ms. Williams.